Welcome back to 110 Daily on the 110 Sports Network. Not Josh Doring, excuse me. Chris Brown, Josh Molinex. Josh Doring not here today, but we're holding down the fort. Chris Brown is here with me. Chris, let's do some humor me, please, shall we? You know the
Let's do
rules.
it.
Nice manners, humor me, please,
Of course.
and that's all I ask. That was simple, man, and I just like some manners for this segment. But what do you got for me today?
Yes, I think I can oblige that. Mine is sort of a shout out for Humor Me Please, sort of a recognition to a college basketball team. I know you have some topics that you want to discuss, Josh, that are sort of some of the bigger topics from sports this week. So I kind of went off the beaten path a little bit. I want to
Let's do it.
just sort of give a little bit of a shout out recognition to Arkansas basketball.
Yeah.
Um, the Razorbacks faced off against Alabama on Wednesday. That was the team that handed them a 31-point loss back in mid January. This time things went a little bit better for Arkansas. They went on a huge second half run, took down the Crimson Tide very convincingly, 81-66. They got significant contributions from several players. They were aggressive from the jump. They shot close to 50% from the field against an Alabama team that's one of the tops in the country defensively. Um, they outscored Alabama 27-3 from the free throw line,
Man,
that's
no
you're not going
wonder
to
no
win many
wonder they
games if
won
you're
by
out.
15.
Right. You're not going to win many games if you're outscored from the free throw line 27-3. Um, Arkansas has now won 8 straight SEC games, including over two top 10 teams at the time. That's a lot of T's in Missouri and Alabama.
Wow.
They're playing fast. They're playing fast. They're playing confident. Justin Smith has been so crucial to Arkansas's success this season. He had a double double in this game. The team without him is 1-3. With him, 17-2. They're
W.
just a completely different team with him in the fold. He brings a toughness and a great defense to their front court. This is a team that it's sort of random, but this is a team that I think um, is a team to watch moving forward this season, potentially in the tournament. They're pretty well rounded, and they're just playing with a lot of confidence right now. And the SEC, obviously, it's not the Big Ten. It's
Mhm.
far from anything like that, but still winning 8 in a row in the SEC is something to really make that sort of made me take a look at what this team has been doing a bit closer, and I'm pretty convinced.
I think Justin Smith, first of all, there aren't many people that made a better decision before this college basketball season started than Justin Smith, who transferred from Indiana to Arkansas. Um,
Yeah,
Arkansas having a much more enjoyable time playing basketball right now than the Hoosiers are. But that's ultimately neither here nor there. It's interesting. There isn't an SEC team that I am more confident in than Arkansas.
yeah,
Now, is there a team better than Arkansas? Yes, I think that Alabama is
yeah,
better than Arkansas. But there are some
sure.
there is not a team in the country that graces a wider range of the spectrum for me than Alabama does. Sometimes
Hmm.
Alabama looks like a team that could go to the Final Four and do it pretty
Yeah,
easily if you catch them in the right 9 days between weekends where they're shooting the lights out. They went on a 10
yeah,
game win streak this season, and none of their games were particularly close, highlighted by a 30-point win against LSU. They've put up over 100 points in regulation multiple times this season, and that's something that you just don't do in college. I mean, not even Gonzaga
right.
does that with any consistency. I mean, they have 112 points against Dixie State and 100 points against San Francisco and 102 points against Kansas. So
Mhm.
it's not something that happens all that often. And Alabama is one of those teams that has done it multiple times. But then there are times when if Alabama shoots it well, they can go to the Final Four. They could win 4 straight games, 100%.
Oh yeah, sure.
But they're also a team that I'm taking a really hard look at the team that they're playing in the first round, a really hard
Yeah,
look, because there are also days when they look like a team that could lose to the 15 seed if they don't shoot it well.
yeah, yeah,
And that is First of all,
It's a
that's just
huge range.
terrifying for any Alabama fan to not really. We could look like the number 2 team in the country, or we could look like a team that is just not even in the top 25. It's such a wide range of emotions because yes, there are sometimes that I'm like, there are a few teams in the country that scare me more than Alabama on the right day scares me. But there are a few teams that scare me less than Alabama on the wrong day. At least in the conversation about the teams that are actually good. I'm incredibly intrigued to see how Alabama finishes this season. I know this was about Arkansas, and shouts to the Razorbacks. They've played phenomenally. They've had a great season, and Eric Musselman is an awesome coach. But with that being said, Alabama is so interesting, and they have these days where they just get smoked by better teams. They just get smoked, and that worries me when we get to the NCAA tournament, that a team can be so hot or cold, hit or miss. Humor me, please. I got a couple things to talk about, so you're gonna have to double humor me, please, and I'll ask you twice. I'm cool with that.
All right. Appreciate it.
The first one, let me just get this one out of the way first. Humor me, please, while I talk a little bit about Tiger Woods. A couple things here. First of all, the way that the news cycle completely stopped on Tuesday is just a testament to how big of an impact Tiger Woods is on the world of sports. I mean, it was similar to the way that the world stopped for an entire day when Kobe Bryant, rest in peace, tragically died in a helicopter crash, right? That was, and it's the same thing that I would expect from if something happened to Michael Jordan. It was a reminder just how big of an influence Tiger Woods is and how just different he is from every other athlete. Second, thank the Lord that that his injuries, while serious, were not life-threatening. Everything that Tiger Woods talks about nowadays it has something to do with his children. After he won the Masters, it wasn't, I'm so glad that I was able to prove to myself that I can get back to this level. It was, my kids have never seen me play at this level, and they've never seen me at my best. Today and this week, in Augusta, I was at my best, and my kids got to see it. So first of all, it's so grateful that that there was no tragedy, just a really, really bad accident. And so that first and foremost, and that, of course, anything that I'm about to say next is secondary to that. What I want to say is I really hope that this doesn't end up being the end of Tiger Woods' career, because it would be so. There are probably 3 people in the history of sports that have had more impact on their sport than Tiger Woods had on golf. Maybe. And even like Michael Jordan didn't change the dynamic of money in the NBA. Tiger Woods completely changed the dynamic of money in the NBA. I mean, on the PGA Tour. Colin Cowherd was talking about this on his show earlier this week. He said he was going to kick your butt, but he also doubled your paycheck because Tiger Woods brought so much more money, and it was cool, and he was an athlete, and it just changed the way that golf was played. It's still having that impact, and it changed the way that golf was watched. And as a result, there are a lot of people now that are very rich because of how good they are at golf. And Jack Nicklaus, who has more majors than anybody ever, only made $3.4 million playing golf. 18 majors. You know how much money you would win? How much money you would win if you won 18 majors today?
Oh man, I don't even. That difference would be.
We're pushing $40 million just for those 18 majors. Don't forget finishing 6th 12 times, or forget winning a random tournament that's just a regular PGA Tour stop. Tiger completely changed the game in that aspect, and it would be all right. Of course, Tiger has a very he also has one of the most interesting story arcs of any athlete ever, and it would really be so it wouldn't be. I don't think he deserves to have his career end this way, regardless, and especially if it comes out that the reason that for an accident, I would hate for that to be the last thing that people remember of Tiger Woods' truly public life, because what he has done for the game of golf is unparalleled by almost any athlete in the history of ever. So that's all I'll say on Tiger. But thankfully it was just leg injuries, and he was. And hopefully he can get back to the point where he's screw golf, but get back to the point where he can live a happy life and be healthy enough to watch his kids grow all the way up and play, continue to get to be a father the way that he wants to.
Yeah, very, very well said. I'm right there with you. I mean, it's just someone you want to see leave the sport on his own terms, because he's battled through and come back from so many things, and he's meant so much to the sport that so few athletes get to actually lead the sport on their own terms. I guess that's a little bit of I guess I'm sort of conflating sort of on their own terms versus on top, but part of it is just on their own terms. It doesn't even mean sort of leaving on top. Of course, the percentage of athletes who do that are extremely small.
Yeah.
But just sort of controlling your own, right, making that decision on your own without, the circumstances dictating it. And this, I think that's one thing, because people have also, of course, made comparisons, and a lot of people's thoughts when this happened did go back to, previous incidents with him. Of course, those are there, but one thing I think is so much important context in this is how the different version of him that is today. Like you said so much, he's gone through so much of a public such a public life, everything that he's his whole story has been so public, but this is just such a different version of Tiger personally, what matters to him, what he talks about, and sort of his role in the sport has obviously changed or morphed, sort of adjusted. But yeah, this is just someone you really want to see leave the sport on their own terms. Of course, like you said, priority one is just live life, get back to being able to live life on your own terms, in terms of from a physical standpoint, which is of course number one. So I'm right there with you.
Excuse me. Yeah, absolutely. So hopefully and it very well might be the end of his career, but that is secondary. And
right.
I just hope we don't get to a point where the first thing we talk about with Tiger Woods is that, his life, not life, excuse me, thankfully, his career ended because he got in a car accident. That shouldn't be the first thing that we talk about when it comes to Tiger Woods. And I guess that's to boil it down into one sentence, I hope that's not where we ultimately get. Humor me, please, while I also talk about Russell Wilson.
Yeah, let's do it.
Such a weird... So Russell Wilson hasn't demanded a trade, but he's also said, like, hey, here are the teams that I'd like to go to, which is an interesting, I'm not demanding a trade. It's like, I'm not asking for this for Christmas, but if you'd want to give me this for Christmas, this is the kind of thing that I'd want. You know what I mean? And
yeah.
It's it's a weird situation to find, because you're right. A couple things I didn't realize until recently how not good his relationship in Seattle was. I just always, we got to the point with Russell Wilson that,
Yeah.
these last 10 years have gone so well for the Seattle Seahawks from a relationship with their quarterback perspective that it's weird to see this from Russell Wilson and the Seahawks. Um, but also, it blows me away the number of franchises that leave their quarterbacks wanting more in terms of the say they have in personnel. This is
Hmm.
this is essentially at the core of it what we're seeing with Deshaun Watson,
Right.
and now it's been reported that Wilson has expressed frustrations over the hits he took and stated his desire to be a bigger part of the team's personnel decisions. I don't. I genuinely don't understand how front offices let this get to this point. It just makes sense in my head to especially a franchise quarterback like Deshaun Watson, like Russell Wilson.
Right.
Why would you I genuinely don't know, because the only thing that can come from that is that your franchise quarterback is happier, and also your franchise quarterback knows what's going on the field and gets to see it more firsthand than you do what they need. And I
Hmm.
just it blows me away that we're seeing this so much, and even to a certain extent with Brady in New England
Sure.
with Belichick and wanting to be a bigger part of those conversations as well. Um, it blows me away, and to see a quarterback like Russell Wilson, who has for such a long time been a model of a franchise leader and a guy who stays out of the press for the wrong reasons pretty much his entire career. To see him speak out about this is, things just must be pretty frustrating there in Seattle, and it blows me away that this is an issue that so many franchises are going through right now.
Yeah, you think that teams would start to look around at what's happening in other situations and realize that it's in their interest to try to prevent these kind of situations from developing. Like there's a big enough pattern developing, like you said, that like you can see how this is not. There's no way that it plays out well,
Right.
and clearly, what's happening in Seattle, this is not something that Russell Wilson, overnight he went from you know, when he went from okay or I'm slightly irritated to really mad. Like it didn't happen overnight. Um, so like this is clearly something that's been developing, and you have to know like if you're an organization in a front office, what can happen if that situation in that relationship isn't addressed and like isn't they don't figure it out, because if you don't figure it out, like this kind of situation can happen, and we've seen how it's all played out, and it's it is I didn't realize, obviously, all this. I didn't really suspect this kind of situation would develop. It's going to be interesting to see where it goes. Of course, um, apparently he's upset about or frustrated with um, their slow response to addressing his offensive line. He said publicly that he's frustrated with getting hit too much,
Yep.
and he talked with Pete Carroll about improving their pass protection, but apparently, at least it was reported that he wasn't pleased with the coach's response. And because apparently, at least part of the response from Carroll was have more faith in our plans.
Yep.
But if you're say have more faith in our plans, but you don't feel like one, you don't feel like that's at some point you can plan all you want. You need to have the personnel, and so
Mm-hmm.
that's not gonna change Wilson's mind. But at the same point, we don't know all the information, of course, but how much is he being put into those plans? Like, how much of an influence is he having in those plans, or is it just trust us, we'll take care of it, just we'll figure it out? You got to trust this, trust the process. But if you don't feel like, if you're Russell Wilson, if you don't feel like you get to have influence in that process and be involved in, how that's working, like it's easy to understand how years of a system that you know sort of the things simmering under the surface can start to bubble up and
Mm-hmm.
be more frustrating when you're basically, if you're told just, oh, trust us, we'll figure it out, don't worry. If you don't really have a reason to believe that, then understand how you can get frustrated. I'm right there with you, though. I don't understand how organizations, this pattern is developing, organizations aren't realizing they need to figure this out before it gets to this point.
Yep. Cowboys, Saints, Raiders, and Bears. Those are reportedly the teams that Wilson would waive his no trade clause to go to. That's an interesting concoction of teams. I mean, New Orleans makes the most sense, but Dallas, I don't want any part of Dallas.
No thanks.
The Raiders, they have some good things going there, but also I'm not sure how I feel about that. The Bears, it would be interesting to see a really good quarterback in Chicago. But we'll see. And it makes me wonder, is the fractured relationship mendable, or are we to the point of no return with Wilson, like we clearly are when it comes to Deshaun Watson and the Texans? We'll take a quick break, come back, do best, most interesting, and then get out here on a Friday. You're watching 110 Daily on the 110 Sports Network.